That's fine.
I mean, if it's a problem, like, we can see what we're doing.
Can you go a little bit to the side so that I can, oh no, he's over there.
Should have showered me.
Yeah.
Oh, there's,
That's the price you pay, I
Yeah,
guess.
like, if I'm running
Price of beer.
he also better.
Right, everybody? Cool. Observation 1 is the resolution analysis. Step 1 is the resolution. Next is federal government should substantially increase regulations on the creation of artificial and general intelligence.
Artificial and general intelligence?
Artificial general intelligence. Autobots, mudflap, and skids, a pair of twin robots voiced by Tom Kenny, and they sport notable urban accents and have gold teeth. At one point, they're asked if they can actually read their ancient runes. They reply, "No, we don't do Dewey reading." The movie company specifically made a copyright claim about this portion of Transformers 2 because they actually wanted to avoid the discussion of race. Observation 2 is going to be the framework. The first is going to be that the plan should be evaluated as a vehicle to discuss ontological and epistemological justifications. This turns debate into a question as to why we should act rather than as to the impacts of how we act. But additionally, this we have top of the plan text. We can justify as to why the plan is a good idea. That this should always be the focus of the debate. The second is going to be that reimagining is always going to be reimagining beyond key to questioning our own methodologies. For example, the justifications are the only notable factor in the world of fiat. For example, the plan doesn't actually happen to be in the route. But additionally, there are only speculative claims about potential impacts, which at the bottom. But additionally, reimagining is also key to actually break down our own methodology, and this is also critical for us to be individual critical actors. I'll get you at the bottom of the advocacy. As an unconditional obligation to the other, Chase and I offer the following plan text. The United States federal government. The United States federal government should increase regulations on AGI by decreeing that representations of artificially intelligent characters in film are steeped in whiteness. The United States federal government should increase regulations on AGI by decreeing that representations of artificially general intelligent characters in film are steeped in whiteness. Any questions?
Yes,
Cool.
who is the actor? No, yes, who is the actor of the plan text? Who is the actor of the advocacy or plan text?
Our argument is that there are no actors in the round, there are only speakers. We are the speakers of the plan text.
Okay.
Alright.
Do you advocate the United States federal government?
We advocate for that the U.S. federal government ought to do this.
Okay.
Advantage 1 is going to be whiteness, and is whiteness in science fiction cinema. The contingent 1 is going to be the inseparability of science fiction film and race relations. The first is that science fiction film and race relationships are actually inseparable. For example, the Hollywood sci-fi actually rose to prominence during the same time as white flight in America, but also those films were actually reported popular anxieties about political identity and bodies. The second is going to be that these films are actually classified the inner city as the inner city as the object of both utopia and dystopia. But the third is that during the height of post-war suburbanization, the United States, the white American access privilege, the white American increased access to privileged suburban housing, but also rejecting the city as the acceptable way of life, not only increasing the amount of physical barriers that they had between the inner city by without gated communities, but also through changing racial geography. The sci-fi has actually led to an increased amount of racial arena. The sci-fi is the racial arena in which suburban America can actually measure their whiteness against the other. The contingent 2 is going to be white is on the moon and now white is on Mars. For example, the representations of artificial intelligence, human life forms, only Caucasian actors. For example, in The Matrix, the Oracle was not a major character, and she was actually a token. For example, the movie was actually stolen from a black woman, but also in The Matrix Reloaded the Matrix Reloaded actually makes commentary on non-white allegiances to whiteness via henchmen. For example, the mayor of Indian actually was not only when he leaves, the spawns actually fight for him, highlighting them as to actually value themselves as tools of whiteness. But the contention number 3 is going to be that the impact is Foucaultian racism. For example, the ethical dimension of racism is actually legitimized by because of certain groups seen as a body politic. Not only does this actually highlight the sub and super race, but also the way that actually general intelligence is actually represented in sci-fi media is not only that there's individuals who are no longer capable of actually are always going to be seen as the enemy, but also this identification actually leads to the producing the continuum of violence. For example, the sub race has actually led to not only daily aggressions. For example, an individual just simply walking down the street has to be faced with a woman actually trying to hide her purse or even crossing the street, but also the daily aggressions actually not only increase that on the state level. For example, the division is the root cause of this division is the root cause of conflict. For example, wars are not currently fought on geopolitics, but they are actually fought on eugenic violence. For example, in World War I, the war was not fought due to the Black Hand actually assassinating Ferdinand. It actually was happening due to the Australian Hungarians actually oppressing Serbians. This is not only highlighting about how wars are currently fought on eugenic violence, but also the way that we not only increase the way our relationship to the other. For example, we actually see the other as an individual race rather than another person. For example, the ability to actually identify ourselves and identify with the other is also crucial for the way that we actually have collective responses, but also when the construction of threats is actually based on sub and super race, the state apparatus has to maintain purity through interest of the majority. For example, this is the same thing that happens on the U.S. federal government level when the United States federal government actually increases mandatory minimums on crack versus cocaine. Crack, which is not only a cheaper drug, but also is mainly used by minorities. We see it specifically, not only is this another instance of how the state specifically cracks down on individuals that are claimed to be quote-unquote minorities, but also this makes all other forms of annihilation inevitable. For example, when the state not only increases their aggression against the other, but also acting through the state is necessary, embracing the state is necessary in this instance because the ability not only the ability to actually reverse our past atrocities is always going to be crucial to our ability to actually not only solve in the future, but also to understand what happened in the past and be able to learn from those instances is always going to be crucial in a world where not only are we capable of solving, but also when we get to contingent form, which is shifting perspectives. Number one is that mainstream science fiction is equal to a good tool for criticism and interrogation. For example, the cultural system is actually not only key to the individual drive, but also Harvard University actually did a study saying that the internet and different forms of technological advancements are actually the way that we actually spread ideas, but also exploration in science fiction is actually exploration in science fiction is key. For example, the way that we actually shape our expectations of reality is through that of science fiction. For example, when everyone's bitching about not having hoverboards yet, it's mainly because they saw it in a science fiction film. For example, this is not only raise our expectations of reality, but also relies on our ability to have an understanding of the future. The second is that as the world increases connections with the cultural systems of science fiction, science fiction will produce increasing relevant elaborate criticism, crossing boundaries of contributors. The third is that, for example, in District 9, the personification of otherness and the figure of human not yet human enables the film to create insights about racism, racism, militarism, and also the encampment and inequalities. But also the fourth is going to be that the sci-fi of today equals a reality tomorrow. For example, what is happening currently right now, not only the way that we actually can conceptualize realities through that of our imaginations, that it's mainly personified within sci-fi context, but also the failure to actually consider leads to the future of society. Our inability to actually reimagine the future through sci-fi films means that we are not actually able to actually reimagine the way that the world could or should one day be. But an example of this would all inevitably lead to the cyborgs of whiteness, leading to massive violence.
Sure. All right. The order is 1, 2, 3, the case, and then if I have time, there'll be 2 more bottom.
Do I need more than these for any of them?
Do you, I flow critique straight down on one sheet of paper. If you flow on several, then you will want several.
Can I ask the paper from someone?
Yeah, for sure.
Yep, there's a second.
I'll be right up here. Yeah, the MO, Megan answers the K straight down on one sheet of paper.
Okay.
So it's 3 off, case in order, and then how many off possibly on? 2. Yeah. 2 seconds.
Yep, sorry, we'll do the order.
3, case 2.
All right, so this.
Framework the interpretation is to evaluate the debate as a dialectical materialist. You are a historian inquiring into the determination of factors behind the PMC. The role of knowledge is to endorse the historical outlook of the topic with the most explanatory power. The first is particular facts are relevant without a historical theory. The act makes it universal. It makes it universal when it's particular to capitalism. Second is the focus on methodology. Is key to praxis because otherwise ideology is constrained by political imagination and implementation. Third is the debate is a crucial spade for resistance. Current politics is held. Current politics are held hostage by the economic elite. We are debaters. We as debaters must change our relationship to capitalism to determine how capitalism's strength happens over us. Next is the methodology of Marxist labor theory is a value for the best description. First, because we were born into an economic situation, so this is the first thing we should look to. These are instances of consciousness that are only intelligible through prior cause and universality. Totalization theory is the most productive because it allows for a coalition building in particularism, which assuages political partiality. And third is ideology of capitalism imposed in epistemological policy, which causes bankrupt decision making and also causes dismiss radicalism. Next is identity politics entrenches capitalism on 2 fronts. It first divides us into a rule strategy where racism is only one issue, and the case can only answer the question question of why people are racist framing race in terms of culture is logically circular and trades off with universalization resistance. Oppression little b is returning racism from an economic to a cultural level means that it is private matter of individuals is justifies unequal wages and undermines unity of workers in the face of their exploits. The exploiters. The second argument is the localism of factors and forces looking only to proximate issues which ignores the way that we are all part of the class system. Third argument is that your affirmative claims race but ignores the cinema industry itself is what allows non-white bodies to be commodified and statistically defined. The links first that AGI seeks to enhance and develop instrumental directions. No, okay, those were the links.
No, read these as well.
Also, AGI seeks to enhance and develop its instrumental rationalism. This is a way of seeking to understand the world through twofold lens of efficiency and utility. The second is instrumental rationality and eradicates knowledge of labor and time over a process. We do not acknowledge what goes into the final product. Third is that you fetishize the object of AGI, which is meant to have a infinite machine which quantifies fetishism, which means that the endpoint can never be attained through infinite production of consumption by the elite. The fourth argument is that AGI creates external production, which is also validated with the hierarchy of knowledge and production power of prioritizing patterns based on the calculation. AGI guarantees that there are no other ways of thinking that are disregarded. This turns the case because AGI cannot have motions and also justifies cultural genocide. The effects of the capitalism fuels the imperial drive to secure new sources of expansionism. This organizing principle of necessity is a cultural crisis and massive war fighting technology is ecological destruction. Capitalist logically exhausts resources through continuous consumption. There are no new markets for capitalism to expand. It means into the destruction of the environment becomes inevitable. Third argument is instrumentalization of life. This internally linked to your that makes it impossible for you to access it. You makes it impossible for you to access activity on its own when you use individuals as instruments, especially to prove the point of the state. Also,
I love the argument that the objectification that happens through capitalism, where the worker becomes the object, makes people into bodies, controls the internal links of their argument.
We control the internal links of their body because you make people into people into objects when you
Process of labor does this.
through the process of labor, which is the process of capitalism. The alternative is to vote neg to endorse Marxist labor theory of value. Vote neg to endorse Marxist labor theory of value. There's your copy of your question. So the first argument of revolutionary theory is the affirmative is only relevant in the gravity of capitalism. We should affirm historical necessity. This allows us to reconfigure how we relate to capitalism on an individual level, which is the only way to stop object fetishism and objectification of our relationship to capitalism shapes our knowledge and sectors devoting negative acts for an ethical necessity to criticism by bringing bring us to violence where we are complicit in capitalism functions to universal acceptance on an individual level because there is no center for capitalism's power, which means that we can be started from any point. And third argument is that the versus capital is key to revolutionary politics and publication fails because it makes us believe that capitalism can be solving these problems, and it also creates the magnification and violence of capitalism that allows it to regenerate. Next. First argument is that you need to defend the implementation and enforcement of policy action by the United States federal government. This is good for several reasons. First, it's necessary for grants. Not only is it necessary for the strength of this links, it's also necessary for counterplay competitiveness. This means that you robbing the flexibility LLC is necessary because it's the only chance we have to make. It's the only chance that we have to make offense against your when I see that we will be able to respond to your answers to means that it's necessary for you not to get the answers against us. Key to fairness and equitable division of ground. Next, it's good for deliberative democracy. It's necessary to talk about policy making. We will become political decision makers, which means that political evaluations are necessary for our polity education. This is especially necessary to inform ourselves about how we make voting decisions in the future, even if we don't become policy makers. Also, it's bad for predictability. Europe is bad for predictability because it's infinitely unpredictable. It increases the limits exponentially because there are infinite isms and things that the state can be wrong that you can criticize. It's unpredictable which ones you're going to do, which means that there's an infinite scheme for the affirmative, especially when you get 3 weeks with the topic, and we can only 7 minutes to respond to your to think about your for next argument. Okay. I don't want that.
Yeah, I just want to.
Okay, next is case.
Could you read your interpretation on the other argument?
Defend the implementation and enforcement of a policy action by the United States federal government. Science fiction is bad. First argument is that fiction is embedded in capitalism for the selling books and movies, and the second argument is that entertainment is based on short-term emotional gratification and not long-term change. We watch movies like the Lorax leading GMO popcorn out paper cups. A third argument is that fiction forces our consciousness from the body, making people learn things not based on their body's physical experience or Western science. Science fiction inherently forces mind framework that excludes the population sex. Arguments that discuss race and debate are ineffective because it creates a huge amount of backlash and forces teams to say things like racism good. This is empirically proven through reactions to Townsend's argument. This causes an enormous amount of exclusion from people from debate because they think that they're forced into a mindset where they either say racism good or they just lose debate. People don't want to say morally reprehensible arguments, which means that people are forced to leave the activity. Also, which means that you collapse debate. We think debate is good because it's the only opportunity want me to read this?
No, I
Do you want me to
don't.
read this?
No.
What do you want me to say?
Yeah, read that one.
Okay. Next.
This is a new sheet.
Yes. Cool. You need this first argument is the continuing resolution to fund a bulk of government programs will pass in the status quo. The Democrats proposed it and supported through Republicans. Agreed to a discussion and coming forward with Ryan as their leader. Republicans passed this year in the House in order to fund military cuts and government shutdown. Only next is there's no political viable stance they cannot support this year and for current political climate because most parties fear that it will come to a game of chicken that will shut down the government. Reconciliation this year will happen before the 27th, but the Senate needs to get it a few days before in order to have reconciliation. This process will be a hard fight because the bill's diversion from military and social policies on the House and Senate will also then be necessary for reconciliation. Next, in Elim's plain question of Obama's credibility with Republicans because there are large regulations on businesses, new markets that allow Republicans and Obama to have to be anti-business bans that seems to make larger distraction from the Senate CR debate. Also, yesterday they agreed to limit the debate on the CR, which means that now it's necessary, now it's immediately key. Internal links. First is that the Republicans don't allow the CR to pass in the Senate and government shutdown because there's some land Obama to make it through, and Obama doesn't have the political capital to arms to reconcile, the Republicans have reconciliation, which means the bill fails. USFG shuts down on the 27th of March, and all non-essential employees are furloughed, non-essential programs are canceled. This means that all debaters have to drive home from nationals because all rest areas are closed. Also means that meat inspectors are non-essential, which means that they can cut collapse the meat industry. Meat is especially good to the agricultural. Meat is especially good because it allows us to provide food aid. This is necessary for because if the international confidence in our beef fails because we don't have meat inspectors, then means that millions of people will die. We have an ethical obligation to prevent starvation on a massive level, especially since 2 million people rely on our food aid.
Cool.
What do you use this?
Yeah. It's going to be the alternative, then the solvency, basically the alternative debate straight down to solvency, then we'll be going back to the links, and then briefly touching on framework.
Your frameworks or ours?
The
framework to the K or the
your
framework to
framework
the policy
specifically.
maker?
Your framework specifically.
Which one of our frameworks?
The framework
Your
on your
framework.
critique of
Okay.
Cal.
The dialectical
Yeah.
stuff. Yep. And let's see, where do I have them?
Are you going to do permutation stuff
Yeah.
on the alt page?
Alt, straight down through solvency, links, then we'll be going over the new procedural, defend fiat, then politics, debate.
Whoa, back up. Is there a new sheet of paper in the MG? Or are you
No,
saying-
there's not a new sheet of
the new procedure. Okay.
And then
Their
it'll be
policy
case in
making.
order on bottom. So yeah, I'll give that all one more time.
I can look over it, but you won't be able to hold it.
Yeah, whatever, I'll just sit down and do it. Alternative, alt solvency, links, your framework, procedural, politics, case.
We're doing permutations on the alt.
Yeah.
All of these. Is everybody ready?
Yep.
Our first argument on the alternative is the permutation. Our permutation says, do the plan and endorse the Marxist labor theory of value. Do the plan and endorse the Marxist labor theory of value. There is no competition within this alternative except the words of a negative addition. We have several benefits for our permutation. The ace one is multiple ideologies come together to better answer back the way in which we have intimate connections with capitalism, better understand the way in which we relate to it in the individual's mind. Also, in the status quo addition, this argument says that multiple ideologies can also check back the individual weaknesses and blind spots in each other's positions. They make a capitalism is an inertial argument is that this argument is already answered because being better questioned with the multiple ideologies, the way in which we relate to capitalism. These one is there double banana that links to capitalism is so strong in the sense when also in the individual's minds that the alternative can overcome it, or the alternative is so strong to overcome the permutation. The C one is juxtaposition. Our argument juxtaposition is uniquely key in this specific instance because we're questioning the way in which difference relates both on a socioeconomic level and also specifically on a racial level, which means that the clarification between the ways in which these interact is better results in permutation. These one, if you argue their alternative is far too rigid methodological approach to the ability to resolve for capitalism, our argument for permutation is absolutely key to create a new politics of indecidability that is necessary in order to break down the way we can create a new trajectory for the way in which capitalism functions and around the each one is the alternative is completely self-defeating. Our argument specifically is that the alternative takes central distance and it kicks anyone who ever maintained paths by capitalists that you can't play this anymore. Or we all say the alternative is in a double line. Either they distribute it means continues to kick people out, or alternative is incredibly practical because everyone has a different idea of what it means to take on the Marxist theory of value, which means that alternative action never gains momentum. The F one is the app is consistent with the criticism, in which case the permutation is the most desirable option because the alternative is an opportunity cost, or because the alternative is not an opportunity cost, or the app and the criticism are antithetical to each other, which means the permutation exposes the nuance, the interplay between the competing perspectives and determines our understanding with either strategy, which means the permutation is always be desirable in the round. The G one is their alternatives also an attempt to foreclose on oneness and saying specifically the ways in which we are embracing clash, disclosing each other. But them simply saying that the only alternative means of solving backwards is new, creating a means of difference in the debate or means of the interaction solve backwards, types of solve problems that they're specifically mentioning on the alternative proper. On their specific solvency arguments are first argument, your alternative to solve only creates new hierarchies, replace one match second part of another, which means inevitably that it's going to be a new rejection theories of value. Our arguments as an empirical warm, we simply say that when people have rejected capitalism still in the past, without focusing on race, that still have racial oppression continued in the past. So units a great example of this, how there's still Chechen oppression in the status quo. That means you have no impetus on this question. The issue is that primitive is absolutely necessary. Resolving back to your type of revolutionary politics, you're simply saying is absolutely necessary. Going over the links. Our first argument turn on the difference between this experience and identity politics arguments turn that their specific amount of your representations are essentially operating under colorblind racism. Our argument is specifically that there is non-neutral forms of oppression. The oppression must be viewed and informed by your perspective, specifically in terms of how race is happening. The next argument turn your arguments are ahistorical. Specifically, the Neanderthals had racial oppression before the implementation of mercantilism, and also capitalism means that we're winning a root cause argument. In addition to the instances where we reject capitalism completely, and there's still racial problems, and it indicates that we need to interrogate privilege, which is propped up through capitalism, and also use that as a means to bring on capitalism together. We are allies in the situation. We say that Euro-Pacific emphasis on just class is problematic. That is why necessary why the permutation absolves this argument as well. The next argument is turn. You need to fully throw yourself into the system in order to exist. And this is GJ's argument specifically in the culture, and also we contextualize this specifically to rejecting capitalism. That other people also failed because it's enabled to move it into the kind of factor reason why the average is absolutely necessary to resolve this sort of question. The next argument is to turn the next argument to turn the app is necessary to problematize modes of difference, specifically the type of ableism that occurs when you perpetuate a form of privilege is necessary to break down the ways in which capitalism can be continued to justify itself. There are arguments specifically the ways in capitalism through the elites can justify its existence that is absolutely necessary because of racial boundaries. There are arguments we break down those racial boundaries means that we're necessary to revolving the entire question whatsoever. The next argument go for the framework. Argument here on their interpretation framework is that dialectical materialism is vague. It doesn't apply to capitalism. Means we can fully weigh our impacts as well. There's a Hegelian argument, which means not specific to Marxism. Marxism only applied it to capitalism later, which means that where our impacts fully throw into your framework, you can question methodology and epistemology. We're both agreeing in this position means that both sides should be able to weigh the impacts in this debate around equally. Zero. First argument, meet your interpretation, because you're our first argument, meet your interpretation. We do defend the implementation of policy in the United States. Our ground argument is that your interpretation is so vague. You never say what it means to implement a specific policy. Our arguments are specific advocating the United States to reimagine the ways in which it configured race is implementation of a policy. The second argument is counter interpretation. Now we should be allowed to advocate or reimagine the ways in which the United States are governing business policies. Again, we should be able to reimagine ways in which the United States are governing business policies. Our arguments meet this interpretation because our advocacies are reimagine the way in which we can see fiat. Addition, you can also substantiate arguments specifically why fiat is bad and key to reimagine fiat is absolutely necessary. These are also turns to specific standards why fiat is absolutely necessary into debate on their specific standards arguments. There's no articulate grounds to those positions like putting them at a disadvantage. The next argument is this deliberative democracy arguments the limits are bad because it only forecloses means which revolution can happen, because it's saying this is a space which we're not allowed to debate, and that is problematic because it only means revolutions continue to argue problematic. There's other impact turn to your criticism means you link your own criticism. You're trying to create modes of difference in and of itself and trying to foreclose the revolution you're specifically trying to solve for. Politics. Drop the impact level. Well, first argument, this totally links hard into capitalism because they're essentially ultimately saying that the type of food aid is good and it's necessary in order to profit the sort of market system within these individual countries. The next argument is that the cost of food aid is probably a good thing because it actually allows these individual countries to develop their own sort of infrastructure necessary in order to reverse the class mentality that is occurring in the status quo, because countries like Montana and also the World Food Bank is actually using the type of food aid in order to profit these sort of unjust practices and structurally adjusted programs that have actually co-opted Argentina's own legal system and made the have a chance to gain self-mobility. The next argument turns the food aid is also really bad because it also collapses food prices because farmers only access to compete against free food. It means that they're out of a job, only continues to propagate. The global north and global south means that the permutation actually resolves this question because this is an example for a perfect instance of where you're immediately focused on just politics and also specific capitalism is really problematic. You only link your own heart to heart, your own criticism here, and also you perpetuate the divide the economies between global north and global south. The next argument is term simply said is only going to lead the probability of individual imperialistic and colonialistic mindset makes war inevitable. Simply you're saying these people cannot defend themselves means that war is inevitable. You also be linking the separate extinction arguments. Jen makes on the case. Let's go to now. First, they say whiteness is embedded within capitalism. Our argument is that you're not winning at root cause. Specifically, we're saying that actually there was racial dynamics before capitalism was created. Capitalism was an idea they had merged out of mercantilism around the 1500s. That means we're actually going to resolve this question. Additionally, don't allow them to make new characterization of what capitalism means. They don't really stable interpretation of what it is. Our argument is that capitalism is a type of where the means production is owned privately as the classical interpretation. Don't allow them to make new arguments trying to send this back to history by creating different definitions of capitalism. Next, this is saying entertainment's bad. Our first response is only deep it's best. Additionally, say that also interrogating the way in which entertainment works is actually far better because it actually shapes what we interrogate the future. This is all she and sci-fi arguments that do not go or they will completely concede. Thirdly, she says, thirdly on their third argument, our argument is that cold learning model checks back simply the feel abstract conception before they move on to actually hard and material begins acting to the world. This is absolutely necessary to check this back. The fourth argument states specifically we're ineffective to forcing to say that things are racist. Our argument is that it is not just because you could read a bad argument doesn't mean we have forced you to. You actually have an alternative that you have another advocacy. It's not more the bankrupt. Furthermore, we say that's not a reason why you should not go for the plan. It's not justification because people could debate badly. The next argument, she says these unclaps debate our arguments in a way in which you foreclose that means a revolution simply in the way of the NYC because my collapse debate is the worst form of argument. Is the worst form of argument because you're trying to foreclose other morally appropriate approaches to different structural problems. People never debate systemic impacts in the world. This is true. Next, the debate community is incredibly resilient. People have been running criticisms for Long Beach for 20 years. The debate community has not collapsed yet. Probably won't actually collapse. You still agree debating capitalism means you're not absolutely no impact this is having. Furthermore, we say turn and then extend the rest of the shell. Specifically, go to condition 3. We solve that for the entire racism issues that are occurring right now, which is an internal link to the commodification discussions that they're saying right now. They can see that we solve all this. We solve for the commodification that is specifically occurring right now. You also extend that the state operates in the manner of minimums to continue to crack down on minorities. That's why we need to completely interrogate the state. You also can extend 100% of the impacts which are completely conceded. A reason why there's going to be an extinction inevitable in a world we can commodify these individuals as the other. This is a disadvantage to the alternative because it does not recognize this through the racial law. This only references things in terms of class, which means there are always going to be vulnerabilities and otherization that continues to occur in the interim.
It's going to be an overview that I would like to put on a new sheet of paper. Then it is going to be the critique in the order of framework, links, it's going to be the LSE order, it's going to be straight down, links, impact, alternative. Then it's going to be case.
Do we need the framework sheet from case?
Huh?
Do we need the framework sheet from case?
Which sheet?
Disadvantage one against US.
Oh, yes, that's going to be the first thing on case. USFG action. So I guess the theory. And then the politics of that. Everyone good?
Can you do that one more time, please?
Yeah, definitely. Overview, critique in the order of framework, links, impacts, alt. The procedural framework, the case debate, starting with sci-fi, and then on race and debate, and then on contention 3, and then the politics of that. So windows and left yellow. Everyone good? University Board is going to win this debate round for 3 reasons. The first for a couple of reasons. The first of all is because we have more specific analysis of how these different types of critical theory interact with each other. You don't address any of the links that we read besides the links on race, which means that the fact that you incentivize AGI technology, use it as an instrument of rationalization mindset, which leads you back into the capitalist discourse, that we criticize. This makes racism inevitable. It turns your 180. The next argument is that you don't address the fact that science fiction is itself embedded within the capitalist discourse, which means the root harms of your app are only possible within any capitalist framework, which is perpetually going to reproduce. In addition, you drop our argument that this means that the only way to understand and solve the root cause of the issues that 1AC proposes is to understand the universalization of class. At the end of the day, we're going to be the only ones giving you a specific solvency mechanism, which is the type of rethinking through Marxist labor theory, where as the affirmative team doesn't isolate any type of solvency coming out of their case, only that they talk about race. This is not a method. You can't vote for this. Framework. First, I'm going to press by the role of the ballot, which says the role of the ballot is your historical outlook of the topic with the most explanatory power. We articulate this is going to be uniquely key because, as Keynes' arguments on the method state, Marxist labor theory is the best description of this. It allows us to understand the primacy of economic situation because we're all inherently born into this. In addition, this is a universalizing issue that affects everyone on the globe. In addition, the ideology of capitalism imposes epistemic blind spots, which means that we're unable to look at certain social issues within a capitalist framework because they don't fall into the production mindset. This means issues like race get pushed to the side, which is why we can't talk about things like racism within the world of the status quo. In addition, this is also within our framework. We're going to eat. Okay, the framework debate. You vote for whoever's method is better. We're going to be reading historical materialism is better than their method. Links. cross-apply these links on AGI, which will completely concede that this is a method of thinking that you use in order to address race, which is to promote the idea of robots within movies. This is an AGI technology that enhances the idea of instrumental rationalism, where we think that robots and the implications they have with humans makes humans themselves into objects, because it's all part of the production discourse that exists within the world of the status quo. Your winters don't answer this. Even if you would have risked those, we don't need to win the race, like they don't need to win the debate round, but we're still winning them anyways. On my left. You think the representations operate under color blindness. This is not true. We look at the root cause of the issue. We look at how people become objectified. Looking at race alone does not solve this issue. Pagan's analysis on the impact level debate will solve that. I'll go there later. Next, to say that you say turns A historical to race compression plus first. Look, this is a chicken and egg debate. No one's probably ever going to be able to solve which one happened historically first. We articulate those the way reason that racism articulated itself, the way that it did through discriminatory policies that exist in the status quo is because of what happened with slavery, which was primarily based in capital exploitation. Next, you say to yourself in the system, which is your Zizek argument. Zizek says like 10 different things. This is ridiculous. Also, you putting yourself within the system makes you believe that capitalism can solve capitalism problems. Regeneration argument, make only alternative debate means that you're not capable of solving it. You didn't answer this argument. Next, you say turn the app, problematizing modes of difference and break down racial bonds. I want to cross-apply the localism argument, which says that it forces looking only to the issues which are proximate to us, which ignores the universalizing issues that prohibits coalition building and makes solvency impossible, because we can't understand the ways in which the universe, in which the world is structured. In addition, I want to cross-apply the identity politics link that says that this divides capitalism onto two fronts. We say that racism is, we say that hard racism is an issue of class. Class allows us to look at racism, but racism does not allow us to look at class, which is the main distinction between these two things. Impacts. We're going to be controlling the internal links and the objectification impact that both teams are going for. In addition, we're also controlling an external link to eco-destruction, which is going to be a tiebreaker in the world where you think that we both solve for objectification. First of all, I do destruction argument. We have said the capitalist perpetual logic of consumption means that we're going to inevitably exhaust our resources through this continuous consumption. There's not enough markets in order for this meal to expand, which leads to inevitable extinction. We articulate that this is unique to our alternative because without breaking down capitalism, which one AC inevitably does not do, we're incapable of solving this ecological collapse, which means that ecological collapse, this implicates uniquely people on the periphery, which includes minority populations, because they don't have access to resources that they don't protect. And the next thing I'm going to go for is the instrumentalization of life. The process of labor, where we as individuals produce things like movies and then relate to ourselves through those, makes the human into the object, and the product that we're creating, such as the movie or the robot, is the thing that we look at for analysis. This is shown through both the science links that we articulate coming off of the case debate, as well as through this great instrumentalization argument that I give Katie coming out of the LOC. We say that this type of instrumentalization is what causes objectification. And we don't have a world in which we view objects as having intrinsic value, and being able to do that, we're incapable of solving for the root cause of objectification. Alternative. You make a bunch of permutation arguments without addressing the permutation preamps. Cross-apply the alternative here, which has a couple specific things. The first is that reconfiguring our relationships with capitalism at individual level is the only way to solve this type of objectification and fetishism. We say that you're not capable of stopping this type of fetishism because you still look through things like science technology, which links you to AGI, as well as science fiction movies, which means that you can't endorse it. You can't completely obliterate this. This links you back to the regeneration argument. Because you're using things within the capitalist system to show why racism is bad, it means you're using capitalist objects in order to try to solve your solvency mechanism. This reifies the idea that these movies, the science fiction, the production of objects is good, which means you're impossible for somebody to perceive within the long term. You make much arguments about multiple ideologies are good. Cross-applying above the need to understand the universal structure of capitalism for the frame of debate. This means that it's incapable of, this means that movements are always going to be fractured in the world of the permutation, because identity politics makes us separate from each other and creates divisions between populations, which is never capable of solving bad. We said this is the only thing to check back multiple types of epistemologies. We're showing you that capitalism deconstructs objectification, which is the prerequisite to being able to even have this ideology to articulate this within the world status quo. The next argument makes a double-blind argument. We articulate specifically that the ways in which individuals interact with capitalism itself is uniquely key, because capitalism functions through our universal acceptance of it, which means that the individual type of rejection that Katie and I have within this debate space is uniquely key. However, it has to be a full rejection at all the individual levels, so we can create an ontological space that exists outside of capitalism. This is not a double-blind argument. Your double-blind argument simply doesn't work. Next, you say juxtaposition. This is ridiculous. You don't have to justify morally important arguments against morally correct arguments to realize that morally important arguments are wrong. In addition, you say the difference is based on a socio-economic level. We articulate that juxtaposing these two ideas simply means we're incapable of understanding the ways in which class and forms our understanding of race, because it creates the epistemic basis of materialism, which we use to do this. This means your permutation is incapable of solving. Using the alternatives too rigid to be able to solve the problem in terms of decidability. The alternative is only form of decidability because we are capable of embracing a system where we don't know what the future is, but we know that the method of resistance is not going to be through using the products of capitalism that the firm uses. Next, I want to cross-apply next, you say all fractions of the fails, that's my above. This isn't capable of happening. It's an this debate space. I don't think you understand how our critique works. You said the perm exposes nuances. That's not true. The critique itself is key to stopping regeneration. Disadvantages of permutation?
Yes.
The first argument, the first disadvantage of permutation is cost of perpetual regeneration. We don't understand classes mean the universal underpinning that means that classes, we think that the economy is the way to solve that. It's just like racism. This allows capitalism to retrench its hold or monitors makes it impossible to solve it in the long term. The next argument, makes it possible to solve it in the long term. The next argument is that it's house political will. We think that reformist movements have been, we think that the reform has been created to solve the structure of oppression, whereas we don't stop the, which means we don't have political will to stop the capitalist system, which inevitably causes ecological destruction, which makes their impacts inevitable. Run the case, run the framework. Cross-play argument we need. This doesn't turn ourselves. We need to be able to understand what your advocacy is defending, which is the only role of this debate. No ability to generate offense. One case debate. I think I cross-apply the science fiction arguments to articulate a link on the critique debate itself. Cross-apply those. They're based in capitalism onto the politics debate. Using this link harder capitalism critique. First argument is capitalism. First is most positional roles is good because it's TPL check and bias. We don't discover your act up because read critical act is completely untoppable. The next argument is that we're saying the food is the instance of unconditional acceptance of the author, which is the advocacy that your what I see, which what I see stands for like the new link as well, because then you link as well naturally say the term food is bad and world with you shape the only thing for understanding is ethics of foundations because you don't have valid gender office off of this.
Criticism. We will control the solvency of the commodification of individuals, which means that we are capable of controlling the internal links. The impact that is isolated is the most problematic in this debate, which is the use of individuals to create them into objects that means that all violence can be justified against them. It is only a question of internal links, and I think that we are probably the more accurate assessments of what exactly triggers the link of objectification on a much larger scale. First, talking about race is not a methodology, which means that your recognition has already happened, but the priority of solvency of capitalism means that we are capable of solving, we're capable of solving on a larger scale as well as more durably in terms of the alternative instead of just the affirmative laws. Since you are not advocating a method, you are just advocating a recognition. This is
Our method is to look at the way in which bodies become objectified through labor.
Our method is to look at how bodies become objectified through labor. That is the function of the alternative. Look, race pushes people to sides, and race pushes people to the side in capitalism. The reason that you're an affirmative is a problem is because capitalism has pushed race to the periphery. This is the argument that Megan is making on framework, that the reason that racism can exist in policies and in media is because the political starting point of capitalist exploitation. We are allowed to make racist claims in media because we allowed that to happen in our policy, exploitations in capitalism. Things like slavery, things like continued exploitation of individuals of racial minorities allows us to take advantage of individuals and portray this in stereotypes in the media. We are capable of solving racism but look at this. This is how you evaluate the root cause of it. Solving racism may decrease some aspects of capitalist exploitation. We will spot you that. If you decrease racism, you will probably stop some capitalist exploitation. However, if you solve capitalism, you solve the problems of racial exploitation because you solve all objectification and all commodification of people. Solving racism solves an exploitation of a group of people. Solving capitalism solves the exploitation of all people. The justification for objectifying and commodifying all people. Which means that on a much larger level, we will solve the premise of their argument. We will solve the premise of why racism is justified. Racism is justified because we can exploit people, because we have been doing it economically. People of every type of skin color, people of every gender identity, we have been excluding. Racism exists as a result of us being able to exploit people through systems of capitalism. Additionally, we will also win an independent disadd to the permutation net benefit. We do not solve. We are incapable of solving things like racism when we all die from ecological collapse and resource wars that make conflict inevitable. When we have an infinite mindset of consumption, there is not a single lick of argumentation made against our ecological destruction impact. This is an independent impact versus that the one I see is incapable of accessing because it relies on a logic of infinite consumption. We solve ecological destruction through solving the logic of objectification and the justification for infinite consumption. This is a net benefit to the criticism that functions to outweigh any net benefits of the permutation. It functions as disadd to the permutation. The only net term could be a premise of the one AC being good, but we think that identity politics are bad. Megan is excellent on this question. She says that your movement is fractured through the permutation because identity politics fractures people into becoming more defensive of their social location because their identity, they're incapable of unifying with their identity. This means that you are incapable of generating a coherent resistance to capitalism. So your resistance inevitably breaks down. The more you fracture, the less successful you are against the system of capitalism. Look, when we use people as objects and instruments, it is what allows us to exploit people based on race. In the question of what solves what more, the alternative solves more of the AF than the AF solves. The alternative has a solvency surplus, which is solving ecological destruction that independently outweighs the AF because it makes solving racism impossible when we're all dead.
Alright, so it's going to be an overview on top. Overview on top. Then we're going to go to politics very briefly, and then the alternative. The alternative / perm debate, and then the case in order. Ready?
No, hold on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I am now.
Alright, cool. You are going to be voting for Concordia HM at the end of this debate. Your ballot is going to say that not only does a permutation solve all the links to capitalism, but additionally the bridging of multiple ideologies is capable of not only solving back the critique of the affirmative, but also is capable of solving back for all the arguments that they try to talk about. Look, just briefly on the politics dissent. Megan tries to make the argument that multiple worlds are good. This is why they should have access to politics. Lawler's case is just giving. I'm sorry, I know you won't be able to do that. This is just giving us another reason as to why the permutation would be able to work. You trying to make the argument that having multiple worlds is also crucial for debate, but additionally we argue that this is also crucial for a world of ideologies. This is devastating your world where not only do you contradict yourself that multiple ideologies are capable of coming together on the alternative, but additionally the argument that the multiple ideologies are good means that we all also get full access into our permutation arguments. Additionally, you can extend all of our turns on the bottom of the disadvantage. There's no options they can possibly go for.
I think any cross-application of the ideology on the framework of the K to the role of conditionality and the multiple positions we have read are two different distinctions that is never made in the MO, in the context of conditionality.
While I wish that Chase had superhuman powers to predict that you were going to make that argument in the MO, he didn't. You made that argument as your first response on politics. This is a brand new argument that I get access to the way that for you, not only is it a first claim that you make of how to frame the debate, but also I get access to making that in terms of how the rest of the debate ought to be framed as well.
They're all very interesting points, and we'll consider them.
This means that the only options that you can vote for on politics is for the affirmative, on the alternative. We are winning the permutation is capable of solving. You're going to be voting for not only that the multiple ideologies are capable of coming together, but additionally that the permutation is a necessary test to make sure that the alternative is capable of surviving in the real world. You can extend Akashi's first argument that multiple ideologies come together. They try and make the argument that there's residual links in the fetishization of capitalism would always mean that we would actually use capitalism as objects, but our first argument is going to be that, one, this is not unique, but also we argue that we are all individual parts of the system. For example, you are still using timers as a form of capitalism. Not only is this productive by the capitalist system, but also we are arguing that the only way.
I think any articulation of the resources used by the debaters within the debate space is an argument that should have been made as a form of contradiction coming out of the MD.
Your disadvantage to the permutation is that capitalism retrenches itself through the way that we actually associate ourselves with objects. It's again another argument that you made out of the energy. I'm sure it's under consideration. Cool. Not only does this mean that we're all individual parts of the system, but additionally this means that multiple ideologies are capable of coming together. Additionally, you can cross-apply the analysis from politics about how multiple worlds are capable of coming together to actually not only create synthesis, but also you can extend across Chase's Butler argument about how this is crucial. Additionally, this actually creates a new trajectory for capitalism. They drop the argument that this is key to question your own intimate relationship with capitalism, but also we are reasons as to why the permutation would solve much better for your critique. But additionally, you can extend across the fifth argument about how either your alternative is too rigid or else it's not able to actually exist within the real world. That means that even if you vote for an alternative, even if you vote for your alternative, the second that you actually step out of the round, that their movement is completely fractured. But this is important for a couple of reasons. First, that this gives us direct access to the permutation to solve 100% of the critique, but also that this means means that the alternative is always going to be self-defeating. For example, you can extend across Chase double by an argument. They try and say their argument is that this is morally wrong, that two moral wrongs ought not come together because two moral wrongs ought not come together because it destroys the epistemic of materialism. This is wrong for a couple of reasons. The first is that you can cross-apply our analysis about how multiple worlds are capable of coming together right now, but also our juxtaposition argument isolates specifically that you actually need a counter-reference in terms of your ability to actually solve. For example, I can't say this one thing is a really bad thing, for example, because that's a comparison. The only way that we can actually have these comparisons in the real world is through juxtaposition. That means that our original text is crucial to actually show why your alternative is a good idea. This means that we are getting full access. Additionally, this disadvantage of the permutation is just another reason why economic retrenches itself. I think I already answered that at the top, but additionally, we are winning arguments as to why we are not only solving for the root cause of life, but additionally, when we're winning reasons as to why we are solving for the colonialization much faster, you're always going to be preferring the affirmative. Permutation creates a new trajectory, that means it doesn't re-entrench itself.
Also, answer their second disadvantage, but how do we make the statement more benevolent?
Additionally, on the second disadvantage, our argument is that not only do you have that's on the thing proper. We'll get to that. Additionally, you can say on the case proper, you can extend across our arguments about how we solve the root cause and how capitalism is only a means of production. Our argument is that not only do we actually entertain the good sci-fi, but additionally they drop the third argument about Coll's learning model. Coll's learning model argues that learning happens in stages, first with abstract conceptualization, and then with active experimentation. That means before anyone can actively put someone into slavery, they first had to have that understanding through ideas. This is what we talk about in our critique. Not only do we actually isolate ourselves within objects, but also mass media is actually just another form of images in the way that we actually transform ourselves, not only the way that we actually relate to objects, but additionally this means that our critique is always going to come first, but additionally you can extend across our arguments about how you can extend across our entire impact scenario about how not only is this crucial to actually not only re-entrenching the mindset of the reality of tomorrow, but additionally embracing sci-fi is also keep spreading the movement outward. That means the alternative is never going to be able to have access to not only spreading this mass media outward, but additionally it's never going to be capable of solving our movement. On their critique. On the arguments of the historical outlook, there's no reason for you to vote there. Our argument is that we still interact with objects and have a historical outlook in the way that we actually interact with objects, but additionally we're winning reasons as to why we interacting with objects and images are actually why sci-fi is good, but additionally you can extend across our argument, you can extend across our arguments about how there's actually, about how not only is capitalism residual links happening right now, but also the alternative would never be capable of solving. On their fifth argument about, on their fourth argument about Zizek, they are not winning any reasons as to why using the system and using the state would be a bad idea, but also our argument is using the current systems of sci-fi is always capable of solving, not only because it gets the message out there through mass media, but also it has the capability of solving. That means they have no impact to their criticism. Even if they actually link into destruction, genocide still happens, you should always know that.
Hey, no one has cried this great round. Happy? Like when I cried during rounds.
My phone.
I don't know if you saw me, but I was also crying.
Oh, in that round that we had?
Yeah. We both were.
I felt so bad for Colin Patrick. Dude, we did so bad. I was like, I feel like I should buy you a drink after that.
No,
Yeah,
how much? Sorry, I'm one. Oh, sorry.
Oh.